Good morning, people. A couple things I want to share with the masses. Um, in current events, uh, so I just watched a couple videos and just a little bit of commentary in regards to the Joe Budden podcast, and it's some interesting stuff. But one thing that I want to touch on, so there's apparently the podcast was taken down, but by the time you watch this, or in the future, it'll probably be back up at some point. But there was a tweet that had the downloaded podcast. I retweeted it if you're interested. But anyway, it got me to thinking about the dynamics between leverage and positional power, and obviously you can see. And of course, if you're not tuned in, just a little bit of backstory. I'm not really into the gossips type stuff, but I guess I am a little bit. It's intriguing because first of all, I'm a recent listener of Joe Budden podcast. I never really was at first. My friend Aaliyah got me kind of attached into it slowly, like just hearing clips and just watching clips. You slowly kind of get grafted in, and you get intrigued. I like that point. That's a good point. And then the cohesion between the three. Maul, Rory, and Joe, and then Parks is over in the corner. But it had me intrigued just in general as far as the different topics that they were talking about, the various guests that they have on there. It's great conversation. But it got me to thinking with today's events, at least coming to the forefront today, at least on my radar, as far as hearing the clip of Joe firing Rory. It got me to thinking, what is the difference between leverage and positional power? This is a perfect example of someone who has positional power and someone who has leverage. Now, I'm on Twitter, and I'm looking at the various comments and what have you, as far as everybody blaming Joe and some people blaming Rory and Maul, and it's a lot of back and forth about he said, she said. But at the end of the day, you can see who is left standing in terms of having equity. And it's an ongoing conversation between, the CEO and someone who works for the company, or the founder of a company and someone who gets hired by the company. It's a different dynamic, meaning someone has all the risk and someone is risk of losing their job but can go get another job. It's different. It's different. And it's something to be looked at, because especially in the military, when you come in, a lot of people, they come in with the wrong mindset. They come in with their hand out. Give me education. Give me travel. Give me a different base. Give me a different job. Give me something better to do. Give me the best you have to offer. And a lot of people lose track of the fact that a lot of times you don't even have leverage, nor do you have positional power. You come in with nothing. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so for someone to come in demanding something or wanting something, that's cool. But you must acknowledge the fact that there's positional power and there's leverage. If you have neither one, it means that you're part of the problem, as far as you haven't invested something, whether it be time or resources or knowledge or just doing your part as far as what you're hired to do. DJ Academics is an interesting character. I recently started watching him. Really big on Twitch. And just listening to his commentary from a person who's been an employee, but someone who's now an employer. Things tend to shift in terms of what you prioritize, things you value most, things you value more, things you value right now. You have all these different points of views. You have Rory's point of view, you have Maul's point of view, screaming and decrying, all I care about is respect. all I care about is just respect. As long as there's respect, then the rest of it, cool. A lot of times you still must address the fact that if I don't have leverage or positional power, you don't get to choose how someone treats you. You only have the option to leave. And that's a lot of, when you think about the military dynamic, when you come into the military environment, you don't have positional power, especially when you're first starting. You don't have positional power. Even as a brand new officer, you have positional power, but you probably don't know how to use it because you need some experience to go with that positional power. So there's a lot of things that, we must address here, but I really want to touch on the pieces of positional power versus leverage and how to know the difference. Because that's where a lot of people they get themselves in trouble is they forget which one they have, and then they don't know how to use it. Leverage is one of those things where when you have leverage, it's best unused, which is kind of weird. It's the opposite of what you might think. It's like blackmailing someone. And again, I preface that by saying blackmail is illegal. Don't do it. Cool. When you have leverage on someone, you have blackmail on someone, you have what they need or want. Let's say I have food and someone is starving right next to me. I have leverage. I have what they need. If I have water, I have what they need. If they're homeless and I have shelter, I have what they want. Depending on the climate, if you're in Alaska, I have what they need. Leverage changes based on, the clientele or, the person in demand of that product or service. So a lot of people, again, one of the first things you will learn is who has positional power, which again, when you first come in the military, you acknowledge your leadership and you meet your leadership team, and, you have your instructor supervisor, you have your MTI, your direct, you have your assistant MTI, and then you have, your leadership team themselves, your commander, your director of operations, it just goes down from there. And so that's the first thing you typically encounter in a new environment is positional power. Someone who authorizes everything else. The question must be raised, would Rory and Maul have a job if Joe did not start the podcast? Whose name is on it? Who owns the YouTube? Who logs into the YouTube channel? Whose email address is attached to that? It could be a business email. Who knows? The point being is that someone authorized you to be here. And the fact that it's even possible for Joe to tell you, don't come in, you're fired. That shows you don't have positional power. You may have leverage, meaning you help build something. You have equity in terms of you've been here a certain amount of time. You invest in a certain amount of time and effort. Some people are fans of you and are only there to listen to you talk. When I first started listening to Joe Budden podcast, I wasn't a huge fan of Joe, but then I listened to him talk long enough, and it was only after Rory and Maul were on their little hiatus or strike that I really started listening to Joe talk, and just hearing his experiences, starting from being a rapper and his dealings with the labels and what have you, and then finally just retiring from the rap game completely and starting a podcast, and then going to Spotify, and then quitting that, well, not quitting, but finishing it, and then going independent as far as Patreon is concerned. You hear someone's journey as far as the experiences they acquire over 40 some years of life, and you realize, first of all, experience in a lot of cases is more valuable than book knowledge. And from a distance, you can kind of see his predicament as far as involving friends and business, and how money and friends and money and love and money and companionship, they don't mix. Oil and water. They tried. They don't mix. And especially in terms of long-term, business dealings and relationships, it's hard to mix the two, because the one variable that must be present is that both parties value the same thing at the same time. Which means an employer is going to value something different than the employee values. Joe Budden can't let the podcast just stop because employees didn't show up. I have other employees to pay. And a lot of people don't want to acknowledge the position of employer. What is the employer responsible for versus the employee? Someone who just shows up, talks into a mic, and leaves. Who's going to edit that? Who's going to sync the audio and video footage? Who's going to add the show notes? Who's controlling the lighting, the camera angles? Who's switching the cameras? Who's balancing the audio? Who's editing the audio? Is the video color corrected? These are all things that even a person like myself who's just running a simple YouTube channel, there are many different things that must be accounted for. Lighting is one. I have 3 lights in this shot. One is out of shot. Well, 2 of them. Well, 4, because the candle. The point being is that when you own something, or when you're interdependent in a given environment, there are many different variables that you must be responsible for that other people who are simply employees who just show up cannot know. It's different. In the military, you learn that very quickly as far as doing your job, playing your role. There are a lot of things that I can't talk about even when I'm at work, and I may think I know the answer, but because I don't have positional power, I may think I have leverage, but because I don't have context, I don't have the proper point of view. A captain will always see things differently than a senior airman. No matter how long A captain could be in for a certain amount of time. You could have a second lieutenant, first lieutenant could be in for 4 years. You could have a senior airman that's been in for 4 years, and they will see the world completely different. They will see their job, their position, that the squadron, their points of view will be completely different because they're in different positions. They're responsible for different things. It's unfortunate. One thing I will say, and it's what we have to learn, and especially in today's society where no one wants to commit to anything long term. One thing we must learn to acknowledge is the fact that we fail to enjoy things. We fail to just be present in the moment because of the belief that we think something that is good should be permanent. We're trying to force everything to just endlessly continue. It doesn't work. I typically make this argument when it comes to relationships, as far as we want this person to be in our life till we die. Think about that, especially in a military context. I always think about, are long-term relationships possible in the military? And there's plenty of examples. There's plenty of exceptions as far as, let's say I didn't think they were possible. There's someone who's doing it right now. There's someone who accomplished that. But it's still up to me to see both points of view. I always get a lot of questions when I make my little marriage posts, my little subliminal, marriage, marriage is bad and divorces and all these things. And, people would ask me, okay, where are you pulling your data from? Like, where do you get these quotes from, as far as, what evidence are you basing that on? What makes you, capable of making such a statement as a single individual, never been married? And I can make the same argument for a prison, why you shouldn't go, for a DUI, why you shouldn't engage in that process. Wisdom is, first of all, it starts with mentorship. The issue is that a lot of people have to bump their head before they learn. For what? So you can experience the pain and the time it takes to stitch it up, and all the process associated with healing. A lot of people they mess up their lives in pursuit of experience when it should be wisdom. Joe, a lot of people make the argument, that Joe is experiencing, he's constantly ruining something. Every time he builds something, he destroys it himself. And you see this everywhere. You see this in people destroying their own relationships because of whatever belief system. I think someone's cheating, or I don't think it'll work out, or imposter syndrome, or, maybe I'm not good enough for him or her, or maybe they're not good enough for me. It's an ongoing cycle of building something, destroying it, building something, destroying it. Well, there might be some merit to that. Some people enjoy the building process, and once you get on plateau and it's level and there's no more stress, and it's not no longer a climb, it's no longer a struggle anymore, people lose track of the fact that consistency takes over, commitment takes over. And you see that in relationships a lot, where you have a process beginning and you're trying to get off the ground. You're trying to just build something. You see this in the military often, where you're starting off your career and it's all uphill. You're in training. You're going through basic training. You're trying to pass the ASVAB first. You're trying to get through the DEP program, trying to choose a job, trying to get the job you want. You go to basic training. You got to get through that for 8.5 weeks. You go to tech school. You try and get through that. And then especially during today's day, where, COVID is a major variable playing, and it's running havoc throughout, people's lives. Then you get to your operational base and you start a process over where you're the little fish in the big pond. You're just constantly starting over. That's the beginning of the military. That's the first maybe 2 years of just getting in. And a lot of people enjoy that process because it's turbulent, it's fun, it's movement, it's adventurous, it's exciting. There's something always going on. It's ongoing. But then there comes a point where you've been in for 2 years, 3 years. You make senior airman and you're just kind of, you're bored. And that's where trouble tends to seep in, is where people are bored. There's no longer a climb. There's no new goal set. So you're just kind of in this marathon run where it seems endless. It's what I call the wall. It hit me around staff sergeant, but it really probably took hold around senior airman, where you just kind of hit that long stretch of nothingness, where you have to be disciplined, where you have to be ambitious. And a lot of people can't seem to motivate themselves. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think some people are just not built from the same cloth, where they've always had to fight for what they have. So when they get to a new place in life, it's nothing new to them to continue to fight for what they want and to set new goals and new goals and new goals. It's different. It's different. I'm personally, if I had to choose a side, because I mean, if I were watching this, I would ask the question: which side are you on? Are you with Rory and Maul, or are you on Joe's side? I personally, from a wisdom standpoint, trying to be as objective as possible, I would probably take Joe's side, simply being, um, because I could understand the point of view of just being by yourself. Um, you kind of see this historically, where you have socialist governments who want all or everything that they want to say, but there's no risk associated with their position. You know, how is it that you can build nothing but walk away with something? You see this perfectly. A perfect example would be retirement in the military. You must invest 20 years minimum, unless you're medically retired. We're not talking about the few exceptions. The rule is you do 20 years and you walk away with something. You walk away with equity. You walk away with a check, a pension. You invest money into a Roth IRA or an investment fund. You invest in stocks. You walk away with something when you retire. But imagine investing nothing, especially proportional to the person who invested everything, who took all the risks, who invested their life savings, and you want the same returns that they invested. That's not how that works. The janitor does not get the same pay as the CEO. Why? Because they're solving two different problems. How many people can solve the problem of the CEO versus the person that can solve the problem of the janitor? There's plenty of arguments about how much the janitor should be paid, but the rule is the wisdom rule is that you get paid according to the problem you solve in a given environment. That's why I as a staff sergeant, I get paid a certain amount relative to the problem I solve. Whereas you have a general who makes 3, 4, 5 times as much as I do because of the problem that they're solving, and they can easily replace me. They can just promote somebody tomorrow. Send them to ALS. All right, you're supervisor now. Go. Gotta go. How do you replace a 30-year, a 40-year, 4-star general? One could argue promote a 3-star. But how do you get the 3-star? There's 30, 40 years of experience before you get to that point. Therefore, you have 30, 40 years of experience to pull from when they make a decision. I have 4 years of experience to pull from. 4. I have mentorship. I have wisdom. I can read and study all the books of previous leaders. I can study history all I want. I can study all the world wars and Korean War and Vietnam. I can study everything. But until I have a certain amount of experience, my word is only worth a certain dollar amount. If I name any billionaire's name, you know the problem they solve in society. It's just what happens. I don't even have to give an example. You know, if I list any billionaire's name that you can recognize, you're going to know what's associated with their name automatically. But if I say Raymond Isaiah, let's see what I got in the chat. If I say Wadner, Heidi, Hiram, Alicia, Allie, Jonathan, if I say a certain name, what comes to mind in terms of the problem that you're solving in society? And for how many people and for how many generations does that affect? That's something we have to think about when we think about equity and we think about equality in the workplace, and we think about, getting paid. Again, I'm not here to make any judgments or make any decisions. It's not up to me. I'm a worker. I'm a worker, people. I'm an employee. Shout out Ack. Shout out DJ Academics. He's different. And just watching and listening to him and just kind of hearing some of the things he says as an employer. And I mean, he's been on Rory's neck, for a minute, just hand him L's left and right. Every single Twitch he hops on, like he on him. And I mean, there's some things that, he may miss on, but from an employer standpoint, their point of view will always be different than the employees. Leverage versus position. The person with positional power can fire the person with leverage. And depending on how powerful that leverage is, depends on your options. And your options are dependent on the leverage you have in a given environment. You see how Joe has more leverage than Rory or Maul in a given environment because it pairs greatly with positional power. If you think about a stone building, downtown DC, think about how much wind it would possibly take to move that building. Power is not easily moved. Power is not easily transferred. Think about the person who's the founder, who's the CEO of YouTube versus Joe. Think about that gap. You can have millions and millions and millions and millions of followers on YouTube, but you still have less leverage than the person who owns the software, the website, the IP. That's the difference between positional power and then having positional power and leverage versus someone who just has a great following. You see, historically, you see people getting deplatformed. You go from powerful to non-relevant relative to your positional power first, and then do you still have any leverage left? It's crazy. And a lot of people just can't see this worldwide point of view of the world because they're so caught up in what they want right now. Entitlement destroyed the Joe Budden podcast. Entitlement. The lack of gratitude can be seen where someone walks in with their hand out instead of being grateful that there's anything in their hand to begin with. That's crazy to me. It's interesting. You guys got any questions, throw it in the chat. We got a little time. Try to start a little earlier this morning. Let's see what we got in the chat. Heidi, speaking a different language, I see the word excelente, so I will be grateful for whatever sentiments you are providing. Oh, something, my friend. Bless you. Bless you, Heidi. What else we got? Hiram says, what you're describing is the main plot of the movie Black Caesar. Interesting. Salute, Water, I see you. Salvador Matos asks, Raymond, what do you think about going in the Air Force as open general in hopes of getting a medical job? It's a lottery. It's a risk. There's a chance that you might get security forces. There's a chance you might get, dental technician. Chance you can get finance. It's a risk. So you must ask yourself, is it a risk you're willing to take? And you might not have a choice in terms of listing. You might have to list an open category when you're listing your jobs. So that's something you should think about just in general. Just remember, the rule of thumb, remember what the military is. It's volunteer, but once you volunteer in, you don't have leverage or positional power. You are volunteering to be obedient. Lawfully obedient. So just keep that in mind. What else we got? Alicia, you caught one live. I see you. What's good? Make sure you hit that bell. I'm trying to tell people. See, I don't tell anyone to hit the bell. I don't tell anybody to subscribe. I don't tell anybody to super chat. If people are so inclined, like I have consults in the description. Like if people want to do something, if people want to contact me, they will find a way. If people want to catch a live stream, they will hit the bell. They will establish all the notifications. If people want to comment and subscribe, if people, whatever they want to do, they will find a way to do it because, first of all, YouTube's been around since 2005. You hear every other channel saying, do this. Before you do this, do that. Make sure you hit the bell. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on all notifications. Make sure you subscribe to my Patreon. Make sure you, if people want to do something, they will do it. I don't see anything wrong with asking, but it gets repetitive when, it's too much. Especially when I watch a video, I don't want to be sold constantly. Someone always just, Isaiah, buy this, and then we got this for sale, and then make sure you go over to this channel. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. If people want to hear your tweets, people want to follow you on Instagram, if they're curious and they want to dig deeper, they will go in pursuit of that. And again, some people just don't know, but that's how you catch a live is hitting the bell, get notifications. But what else we got? Morning, Allie. I see you. Oh, Alicia with Joe too. I see. Greatness is in the chat. And that's something that I never understood, and it's why I plan on bringing more people on this this platform, as far as just kind of bringing more different opinions and people I can go back and forth with. It makes it more engaging for the audience, but also when you think about why they haven't built their own while still doing the Joe Budden. If you look at Andrew Schultz, Flagrant 2, Brilliant, the Brilliant Idiots with Charlemagne the God, he created his own podcast while still being in partnership with Charlemagne. You can do both. And now he has his own, which means he has more leverage in both situations because he's not stressed, he's not pressed in the Brilliance, the BI, podcast. He's not pressed over there because if something goes wrong that he doesn't like, he can leave. He can leave. And that's what a lot of people fail to realize, is that if you don't have your own to go back to, what are you arguing for? You don't have leverage. You don't have your own. It's like you're living in somebody else's house, but you're arguing with them over what they're going to do in the house that they pay rent in. If they say turn the lights off, you're not paying the light bill. What are you doing arguing, bro? So yeah, it kind of makes sense that you would think that Rory and Joe, or Rory and Mal, would at least have something on the side. There's nothing you can't. I mean, it's the same thing I'm doing. Pick up a mic. This damn mic. I hit the button. I can't remember what I was talking about, but yeah, we're talking about leverage. I'm talking about leverage. In regards to, we'll move on. Yeah, this damn mic. We can't have unacceptable goings ons. I know y'all can hear me now. Perfect. What else we got? Jonathan Moore says, military members, in my opinion, should get paid a lot more. Although they're not in it for the money, they're out here playing baseball, or baseball players rather, millions and millions a year. I am here for the money. I am here for the money. I think anyone doing anything is there for the money, because unless it's a hobby, life costs money. And it's something we can't ignore. Now, I don't think people do things solely for the money, but if you ask the question, would you still do this for free? That's where you kind of get the, I'm getting paid to solve a problem. That's the relationship that most people enter when you enter a new relationship, such as a career engagement or a personal relationship. Whether it be personal or professional, the exchange of values is taking place automatically. That's the implication. That if I show up in this uniform and you give me a task to do, I do it, and then you give me money. That's how it works. So I would not argue against the point that we should get paid more. But again, I don't get to make that determination. Just no more than Rory and Maul get to determine how much they get paid, because I did not create the military. The military was here before me. It'll be here after me. I have not bought in. I have not bought any shares. I always think about the fact that if the military was a company, publicly traded, how much would it be worth, and would we would we be gaining in terms of interest and value and what have you? It's an interesting question, because the amount of inefficiencies that go on, you would think that certain things would be fixed by now, but it's bureaucracy. It's a lot going on. What else we got? Nicholas Smith asks, "Hey, love." Wait, okay, pause. Hey, love your content, King. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Do you know of any single parents in the Air Force that co-parent and are successfully at it from their point of view? Yes. Yeah, I know a lot of single parents. And that's actually one of the questions I was asked to touch on in regards to, and let's just bring it up real quick, and I'll make sure I answer your question as well. I don't want to get too sidetracked. But it reads as follows. Hey, Isaiah, saw your video on YouTube advising single parents on joining the military. I wanted to ask you if any Join the Air Force being a single father. I do not have a child. I do not have child support, and my daughter lives with her mom. Can I still qualify to join the Air Force? Nor I'm fighting to have custody for my child. We both get along pretty well by far. I'm 24 years old and turning 25 on August. So yes, you can join being a single father. That the main variable that will be discussed the most in terms of your ability to join is the custody agreement. And as far as someone else having custody while you're in basic training and probably tech school as well, or at least having that custody agreement where someone else has custody legally, to where it's not going to be an issue as far as who's parenting your child, who's protecting your child while you're out of the public, because it's not like you have your cell phone on you at all times. You know, there's certain cases where they make exceptions as far as I need to address this. Like when I was a basic, I had my cell phone to call my bank to get my card turned back on because they saw I was traveling and they suspended it. I'm like, bro, I'm in basic, bro, turn my shit back home. But yeah, you can definitely join as a single parent, but you will have to discuss the custody agreement with someone. Someone will have to have custody of your child while you're in basic. So in your situation where you mentioned you don't have custody and you're not on child support, the whole thing. If I had children personally, I would put myself on child support just to get something in writing that's consistent over time. Because at any moment, especially depending on your state, at any moment, the spouse could probably go to court and get you put on child support. And depending on your state, it could be retroactive back to how old the child is. So it's something you want to avoid in terms of future wisdom, and future engagements as far as your financial health. You don't want to have things just kind of floating. Yes, you may get along today, but that's not something that you want to. Yeah, that's not something solid. And you want something in writing. That's just my opinion. I'm not a professional. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a family law advisor. It's just something to think about as far as putting yourself on child support, because, again, you want things in writing. You want things in writing because a contract can also be named a disagreement. You don't need any help when you agree. You don't need any middleman. You don't need anybody who's in the middle kind of helping guide the conversation when you guys agree on something. But it's when you disagree or you run into issues, and there's not somebody standing in the gap, someone who's playing, neutral, and usually that has to be a judge. So that's just my little 2 cents. But back to the question. Do you know any single parents in the Air Force that co-parent and are successful at it? Do I know anybody? I know a lot of single parents. I don't know a lot of single parents and their spouse, unless they're recently separated or divorced. So I can't really answer it the way you've asked it. So the answer will be no to that question. But in regards to, do I know any single parents in the Air Force that are successful? I do. I know plenty of people who support their children. They go to daycare during the day. They go to work. Obviously during COVID, there's some things where, you kind of run into some muppy areas in terms of efficiency and time management where you have to work, but, the child care center might be shut down and now you got to find a different one, or you got to find a babysitter. You see that all over the place. And so it can be conflicting. It can be difficult to try to get that worked out. So obviously, hopefully the other parents can step in somewhere, or, maybe a grandparent, or, whatever. Family structure is important. So especially in regards to a military member's career, family is what you will lean back on when you're struggling, especially when it's a child's rearing at stake. So hope that helps. What else we got? Allie asks, do you think it's wise to enlist into the Air Force with a bachelor's degree? Should a person wait it out for the officer route? I'm a huge advocate of getting return on investment for something you paid money for. Whenever my check hits on 1st and 15th, which should be in a couple of days, I'm looking to buy something that is, in most cases, not food. Something that stays around. Like when I buy a cell phone, I can have the cell phone until I get rid of it, or until somebody steals it, or I lose it or something. It's something that gives back to you consistently, meaning you're getting value, you're getting return on investment consistently over time, continuously. You're getting something back. You're getting a service. You're getting a product that you can utilize in some capacity. When it comes to a degree that you've paid thousands of dollars for, someone paid thousands of dollars for, whether it be through loans or you worked full time, you invested time, effort, sweat, equity, all that. You need to get a return on investment for that. I know too many people who graduate with degrees and have nothing to show for it but a job that has nothing to do with the degree. You study criminal justice, but you work at the grocery store. What was the point of the degree if you can't use it? Now, obviously, the economy fluctuates, and you must account for all these different variables. Um, but yet and still, you want to get a return on investment for something you invested for. Some people just call it quits and say, "All right, let me just get a job, let me just pay the bills." Cool, cool. But you still must think about the fact that you invested 4 years for something. Do you want something back from that? A lot of people have debt. Think about how interest works, and it compounds over time. It doesn't go away. Student loans don't just, you can't just die and escape them. They transfer. They go to someone else. So something to think about as far as how much is your time worth right now? How much will it be worth as an officer? How much will it be worth as enlisted? Compare that to your debt to income ratio. There's a lot of factors that you should weigh, but the ultimate principle, the ultimate moral of the story, get a return on investment for your time, your money, your investment, your sweat, your tears, your blood. What you invested for this degree, get something back for it. And that sometimes means you might have to wait a little bit. But to take something quickly just because it's available, like you walk into a gas station, you see a now hiring sign, you got a bachelor's degree, doesn't mean you take that just because it's available. Do you take the enlisted route just because it's available? But if you see a job that, we'll hire you, but just give us a year. Find something to do for a year, and we'll hire you. Now, obviously, I would want to get that in writing or something more established. But still, if there's something better, most people will take something less than simply because they don't want to wait. And I have to say this because I can hear the thoughts. I have to say this. Settling, like the concept of settling, annoys me to high hell. And I gotta go. The concept of selling, of I want something, I don't want to negotiate, I don't want to compromise, and I want that exactly the way it is. Settling assumes you have the option to choose what you want and the option to choose what you don't want. You have both those options available right now, today. Most people use settling in the context of I don't qualify for what I want, or something that I want requires someone else's free will, such as a relationship with someone, let's say me and Paula Patton. I won't settle for anyone less than Paula Patton. Well, what if she doesn't want me? Am I settling for someone else? No, I didn't have the option to have her. I didn't have an option for a relationship with her because it requires her free will. So the concept of selling for another human being, no. You can't settle for another human being because they are not a commodity. They are human that has the ability to choose. And the second that you say, or you mean I'm settling for another human, you've just reduced them to an object, to something that can be bought off a shelf. It works both ways. So you can't settle for a human being. You barter with human beings. I'm exchanging value with human beings. I'm choosing to do something. They're choosing to do something that makes it right. Anything less than that, slavery. Love is based on having the choice to choose. That's why God placed the tree of knowledge, good and evil in the garden, because now Adam and Eve had a choice whether or not they ate from the tree. He set one rule. You can do whatever you want. You can eat from any tree you want. Don't eat from that one tree. That one tree represented free will, choice. Whether you believe in the Bible, look at the principle of it. Choice is only available. You only have a choice when you have options. So in the case where you're choosing officer or going enlisted route, you have options. You have two options. So in your case, it would be settling to go enlisted if you have the option to go officer. So to wait is a small price to pay long term. And a lot of people don't think long term when they make their decisions. They just think, I want something right now, or I need something right now. And they're pressed to hurry up and just get relief. Just hurry up and get relief. When, what if you just solve the problem with less? What if you just lower your lifestyle just a little bit so you can live under these means right here long enough to get what you really want, because you have the option to choose that? That's the difference. When I came in the military, I did not have the choice to go officer. So I did not settle to go enlisted. I was not settling for the enlisted force. No, that was my only option. So just keep that in mind. If you have an option to wait long enough to get what you really want, sacrifice. Hope that helps. What else we got? I gotta go. All right, we addressed that, and we got one last question. Do you think that you have made a lot of great friends as well in the military. I really want to meet a great group of people that I can call family for the rest of my life. You will definitely do that. It will take some effort on your part. And I mentioned this several times, but I'll mention it again because it's invaluable. Learn to say yes. The secret to making friends in the military, the secret to making civilian friends while you're stationed at a given base or a certain environment, the secret is saying yes. Saying yes. So there's a video I watched on the infographic show where a guy, he just did a challenge. For the next 30 days, I'm going to say yes to everything. For the next 30 days, no matter what it is, I'm going to say yes to everything. Now, that's a bit extreme because some things require no. Some things require confrontation. Some things require rejection. But you get the point of the principle of what could my life be if I said yes to everything? Well, that's the principle that you must apply to pursuing other people and networking. The way to get into rooms that you should not be in is by simply saying yes. You get invited somewhere, say yes. If somebody invites you out to eat, say yes. Somebody invites you over for a drink, you don't have to drink. Just say yes. Go. Somebody asks for a volunteer and there's a group of people going to do something, say yes. You're going to be in an environment where you meet new people, people that you normally wouldn't be around, because most of us, we get off work and we just, that couch. We sit there, we turn the TV on and we're in our beds and we just got Netflix playing and we're on our cell phones on Instagram, Snap. That's a lot of our afternoons and evenings. It's at least mine because my mornings are very structured. But if somebody asks me something, and especially if I'm new to a base, new to an environment, just got to tech school, just got to my first operational base, deployed, and you're kind of shy. Like a lot of people are shy. A lot of people are introverted. You know, they have introverted tendencies. And so you're in a new environment and, you know, a lot of people are afraid of rejection and they don't have to express themselves to people they just met and who to trust and who's going to betray me and who's good people. Just say yes. Within reason, just say yes. You get asked out on a date, provided, you know, you have the prerequisites as far as attraction and, you know, you don't mind, like you like the personality. Cool. Like all that being said, saying yes will get you indoors that normally would not be available to you, because a lot of people are just kind and a lot of people assume that people will say no. So then you want a piece of chicken? I'm like, you only got one drumstick. Most people are just asking to be nice, but a lot of people would be surprised to hear someone just say yes. Cool. I ain't got a ton of follow-up questions. Who's all going? What y'all gonna be doing there? You know, how much it cost? Like, just say yes. Just go. That's the secret. It shouldn't be a secret, but yeah, being friendly, being open, your body language, have your chest open, don't be crossing your arms. This is a sign that people's on guard. There's people that are telling you with their body language, don't approach me, stay back, I'm scared, I'm scary. But keep your body language open, smiling, smile. You realize that more doors open because you're just simply approachable. You're approachable. So that's my best advice. You will definitely meet a lot of people. You will have a lot of, especially depending on your career field. Me working in finance, when I was in customer service, every person through the base at some point came through my office. And how do you get to know them? Ask them questions. Follow-up question. Practice this. Spend a whole conversation only asking follow-up questions until they ask you a question. You realize, first of all, conversations will flow because people love to talk about themselves, but also people are surprised that you will let them talk about themselves. People don't expect that. People never expect someone to just listen attentively and listen. It's called active listening, where you just listen to someone else talk. People don't expect that. And you'd be surprised how doors will open wide simply because you were willing to give instead of take. Something about. Hope that helps. Shout out to R Blaze, another super chat. Much love. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. My boy, keep grinding. Be safe, my man. Hey, thank you. Appreciate the support. And we got a couple other things. What we got? Appreciate you, Allie. You know, I'm just trying to show a little bit of love out here. You see me. As far as I know, the question is, do they keep men and women separate during BMT? As far as I know, they haven't changed that. I knew there had something in the works in terms of co-ed flights. I'm not sure if they changed it by now, especially with COVID. I'm not sure if they're changing many different things. But if anyone in the chat or there's several Facebook groups of DEP programs of people that recently graduated, they can join and kind of get context on what's going on currently in basic training. So I highly advise you do so. So that's it in the stream. I gotta go. But appreciate y'all joining me again. Best of luck to Joe Budden, Rory, Ma. Hopefully they can all get back on their feet. Excuse me. Everybody needs a path. Everybody needs to be building something. We should be producing, not consuming. At least the ratio should be somewhat even. Do your best to produce just as much as you consume. Whatever that means for you as far as producing, create something, solve a problem, find something that is in chaos, bring it to order. So that's a human's life purpose, is to solve a problem for someone else. So that's the video. Say it was good.